for Mahomes, and he's going to have an opportunity at the end here.
1st and 10. Mahomes intercepted, and that's Taron Johnson with the theft. Unbelievable.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's up, everybody? Not the result that Chiefs fans wanted after they lost to the Bills 24-20 a Sunday afternoon at Arrowhead Stadium, but there's a lot to talk through with that game. Appreciate you for tuning into this episode of KCSN Update, your daily Chiefs video and podcast from us here at KC Sports Network. I'm BJ Kissel, and it's Monday, which means we're going to be doing our stock up, stock down report with ESPN's Matt Miller in just a couple of minutes. But first, look at this game. The Bills offense averaged 6.2 yards per play. The Chiefs offense averaged 6.3 yards per play. It was always going to be a slim margin for error in this one for either team. And let's be honest, the Bills just went out and made more plays, had fewer mistakes. You even look at third down conversions. Both teams went 4 for 11. This game was so evenly matched against two of the best teams in the NFL that if you're a Chiefs fan, you're going to be bummed out. There are definitely things down the road that could make this a little trickier, having to go on the road to Buffalo to play in the AFC title game, most obviously. But in general, these two juggernauts of the NFL getting after it, and it was just a matter of who was going to make that 1 or 2 plays that was going to make all the difference in this game. And the Bills, give them all the credit in the world. They went out and made those plays. So right now, let's bring on Matt Miller to talk about this one and give us his stock up, stock down. Matt, man, what was your reaction and just your kind of overall feeling after watching that game yesterday between the Chiefs and Bills?
Yeah, BJ, I think, we saw the two best teams in the NFL go head to head, and we saw them twice last year. The Bills win week 5 at Arrowhead. I was at that game. And then we saw what happened in the playoffs, the iconic 13 seconds game. So I think it's just, this is what's expected. And I'm not the first person to say this. I won't claim this is a unique or independent thought, but it does feel like we're seeing the next generation of Brady versus Manning, where there were so many of those great battles back in the day. And I think in this reactionary culture that we live in, everyone wants to rush to get on social media or TV or a podcast and talk about one player is better than the other. And I think what happens with Buffalo, Kansas City is, as you mentioned with the yards per play, these two teams are so evenly matched. It's almost just, I told my wife last night, sitting on the couch watching the game, it's like it truly does feel like this game will come down to just who makes the mistake, because both teams are so great. And maybe that sounds oversimplified. A lot of football games are who makes the mistake, but that fantastic performance. I hope we get to see these two teams play again in January. It'll probably be in Buffalo because of the win yesterday, but man, the NFL needs more games like that one. But
yeah, I think that was exactly what the NFL wanted. And I think anyone who went into that game thinking the Chiefs were just going to blow out the Bills, that was not going to be the case. If anyone did think that, I should say. But yeah, I think, for Chiefs fans, there's a silver lining here in that, Willie Gay didn't play in the game. Trent McDuffie didn't play in the game. Hopefully, Josh Williams, who had a tough game, hopefully he learns from that. And all the things that have been said about Josh Williams since the moment, he was at training camp, and all the coaches and teammates, that he's the kind of player that's going to, bounce back or at least learn from those experiences. You can't play that many rookies against in that kind of moment and not have games like that. We knew that things like this were going to happen when the Chiefs were going to put that many rookies in the defensive backfield, especially going up against Josh Allen and Buffalo and Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. I mean, it's not going to get any more difficult than the matchup that they had yesterday. And the Chiefs went toe to toe with, from a measuring stick, that's as good as it's going to be. And that is, again, like you just said, two of the best teams in the NFL. So while I'm bummed as a diehard Chiefs fan that they didn't win that game, I'm encouraged that it was just a handful of plays. Harrison Butker missed a field goal. Patrick Mahomes, the first interception that was forced a little bit after converting on 4th down, that was going to come back and hurt them in a really close game. And so you expect Patrick Mahomes to make big plays. Those are kind of you live with those moments with Patrick Mahomes because he makes plays like that all the time. So for Chiefs fans, before we get into the stock up, stock down, and I'm not trying to, throw Kool-Aid on this because it was frustrating to lose that game knowing what a win could have done for you. But I'm not discouraged at all by what we saw with the Chiefs going up. And again, when you looked at it on paper, two top offenses, but then on the defensive side, it's the best defense. I mean, Von Miller was the difference in that game. If you want to find one player, Von Miller was the difference, because the Chiefs could not get any pass rush unless they blitzed, which has been a storyline for them from the beginning, not to get into our stock up, stock down stuff, but Von Miller ended up being the difference in that game. So what is your message to Chiefs fans who might be bummed out or frustrated coming off that loss?
Yeah, I think something that is, almost a big part of what the Patrick Mahomes of the Chiefs are, is that sometimes you need to lose in order to realize what's not working. Because I feel like over the past several seasons, Mahomes has been so good that he covers up a lot of mistakes. And then you roll into the postseason and you have these glaring issues that have just been washed over by a great quarterback or a great head coach, and they don't get addressed. So we'll get into it, I think, with stock up, stock down, but play on the offensive line, not very good last night, especially on the outside. I thought the interior did okay. And then what we saw on the defensive side of the ball, these are areas that Mahomes by himself, Travis Kelce by himself, can't cover up. It's a tired kind of trope at this point, but Tyreek Hill is not there to save this offense anymore. It's going to be more methodical. There are going to be longer drives to where you can't expose yourself to some of the things we saw last night. So I think that all that negativity is to say, Andy Reid and this coaching staff, Patrick Mahomes and the leaders on this team, they will get things fixed to where you're 4-2. You can still go 15-2 and be the number one seed in the AFC. You're still a Super Bowl contender, one of a handful of teams that actually looks like a Super Bowl contender right now. So I think as frustrating and as heartbreaking as a loss can be for fans, it's only week 6, and there's a lot of room for things to get fixed right now.
I need to constantly remind myself, Matt, that I picked the Chiefs to go like 12-5, but every time they get ready to play,
as well. Yeah.
Every time they get ready to play, I'm like, oh, they're going to win this game. So I predict them to go 17-0 week by week. But at the beginning, it's like, hey, they're going to go like 12-5. So this is one of those ones, again, you're not happy about it. There's definitely things to fix, to your point, but it feels like they're not that far off. They don't have to make these wholesale changes. And that's the team that you got to beat. You just went up against what you're going to have to see to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's the stick. So, Matt, what's for, as far as stock up, stock down, what's your, let's start with stock up. Let's start with a little positivity.
Good news.
Who's a stock up for? Yeah.
Let's go to the wide receivers. You and I have been on here every Monday talking about, hey, somebody needs to step up at the wide receiver position. We saw it. JuJu Smith-Schuster had his best game as a Kansas City Chief, arguably his best game in a couple of years. There was the personal foul, the penalty for taunting. You got to be a little bit smarter. That's kind of what comes with the territory of getting a guy like JuJu. But I thought he played fantastic. Mecole Hardman had a good game. So we started to see some more of that, of some of these guys getting incorporated into the offense. Mahomes throwing for over 330 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's where you need this offense to be. So I think you could say, if you're looking for kind of a silver lining to a close loss, the wide receivers did play very well yesterday. And even, Sky Moore had that one great catch and run. I think we're starting to see, who Mahomes trusts. It's not a 15 target game for Travis Kelce. We start to see things get spread out a little bit more.
That was one of the best throws I've seen from Patrick Mahomes in a really long time that people probably won't talk about. I think Mitch Schwartz may have mentioned it on social media. I think I saw after the game. But the throw he had to Sky Moore on the far outside hash across, like that was an absolute dime. There's going to be, hopefully there's a lot of angles of that throw, because that one was absolutely beautiful. But yeah, it was great to see JuJu use that size and that physicality. We talked about the makeup and just the height and weight and just the difference in the Chiefs wide receiver group this year compared to years past. They're bigger, they're more physical, and you kind of saw that play out with JuJu with his couple of big catches in that game and the touchdown, just breaking tackles and getting down the field. But yeah, the one thing with Mecole, and I think Tony Romo did a good job of putting it out. And this is being really picky with Mecole, where he talked about how he should have flattened out the route.
Right.
Those are the types of things that hopefully when they're watching film and they get down and they talk about it, and not that I know all the X's and O's and all those types of things, but that's a perfect example of how they can go back and watch this film and really develop Mecole and just the entire group, and Sky Moore and all those young players can really dissect those types of things, because we know Patrick Mahomes is going to get outside the pocket. He's going to make off script plays. And if they can learn and see how to kind of break off the routes and do different things to make it easier on him to make some of those throws that are already going to be difficult, the better they're going to be.
And I think to your point, we've heard for 20 plus years how hard it is to play wide receiver for Tom Brady, because what he expects of you, he expects you to know so much and to be able to read his mind essentially. I think we're seeing that with Kansas City, BJ, where it's so hard for receivers to come in and immediately acclimate to this offense. Let me look at Green Bay right now. It's a similar situation where the way the game is played these days, when you have a superstar quarterback, they have a lot of freedom and they are expecting you to read openings. You're not running the route trees we ran in high school out there. It's not that simple. So I think that's where, as we get into more of the heart of the season, as we get deeper, it is seeing if guys like JuJu can continue to acclimate and build that chemistry. But then also on the flip side of it, we didn't see a catch from MVS yesterday. We didn't see a catch from Justin Watson. We didn't see, some of those other guys that we've been expecting to step up. Jody Fortson was, I don't even know that he played yesterday. So I think that's the other side of it is, as much as we love this, the changing of the guard at receiver, it is time for those guys, to your point, to start figuring out the intricacies so that they can become more reliable playmakers.
Yeah, I think it was the play to MVS that got called back with Creed Humphrey being down the field. I mean, again, we're talking about margin of error and plays that made all the difference. And I think even the interception in the end zone went to MVS, and kind of like a 50-50 ball that Kyrie Elam basically just took away from him. Granted, he had better position on, in front of him, but again, those are just the margin of error, the inches, the game of inches, and the old Any Given Sunday speech.
Right.
That, we always reference all the time. I'm not going to pretend to do that, but yeah. So let's move on to stock down. Unless you have another stock up, I don't want to move along unless you're ready, Matt.
No, I think it's when you lose, it's hard to have a lot of stock ups, right? Especially when there are things, like, hey, Travis Kelce was great again. Okay, he's probably going to go down as the greatest tight end in NFL history. We can call that a stock up if we need to, but I think it's important to highlight things that didn't go well, not to twist the knife in for Chiefs fans, but areas of improvement. I was very disappointed by the run defense back-to-back weeks. Josh Jacobs had a great performance. We didn't get to talk about it because we previewed the game. Josh Jacobs had a great performance on Monday night a week ago. And then we saw, Devin Singletary was nearly unstoppable when he was running the ball. So I think that is one area where I was thinking about it this morning. You get Willie Gay back, that's going to help. Your run defense is going to be improved. So that's an easy stock down to fix is, okay, the run defense, especially – it's the inside run. It's not so much the tosses, the sweeps. It's that inside run has to lock up. And especially, as you get into the colder months, it's kind of a cliche, but you can't win in the playoffs if teams are running up for, 125 yards or whatever it was last night, and kind of dictating, especially early in the game, the tempo that they wanted to play with.
It was interesting too, because I think we talked about during the week, and I think I even made the point, like, well, the Buffalo's not going to run the ball. They hadn't been running the ball all season. Devin Singletary had averaged like 8 carries a game, in the first like 5 games, and he comes out and has 17 carries. There's only, I think, 8 games in his 51 career games. Only 8 times as he ran the ball more than he did last night against the Chiefs.
I think they watched tape. I think they watched that Raider game, and they were like, yeah, maybe this will work.
It's always interesting to see how teams kind of do it. And I know it's not either or, and you bring all the variables in, but how much do offenses, and when they're game planning, we do what we do versus we're going to do what the matchup kind of dictates, where all of a sudden Buffalo was going to say, hey, we're not going to throw the ball with Josh Allen. And they didn't get completely obviously away from that. Josh Allen threw for, 329 yards and had 40 attempts. But the fact that Devin Singletary did have 17 carries meant something. And it wasn't just what we saw against the Raiders, where they had an extra offensive line. And it was like, okay, they're running the ball because Darren Waller got hurt. They have an extra offensive line, and they're just going to beat us up. We weren't ready for this. I'm not going to say the Chiefs weren't ready to defend the run, but I would be surprised if they weren't surprised at how much Devin Singletary was getting the ball yesterday.
You almost felt like, and I know, like, I'm not the world's biggest Tony Romo fan, but I think he made a good point early in this game that it probably wasn't going to be the offensive shootout we all expected. I'm assuming he heard that in coaches, those meetings, those production meetings they have late in the week where, Bills coaches were probably saying, hey, we want to slow things down. We don't want the ball in Mahomes' hands a ton. And that's just, it's smart football. And I think for Kansas City, you said the same thing of, we'd rather, I think we saw some aggressiveness early in the game because both teams were like, God, we got to score. Like, we have the ball, we have to score. And they played a little aggressively because of that. But I think anytime you have 2 generational quarterbacks, you probably want to run the ball, keep the ball away from the opposition as much as possible. And the flip side of that, Kansas City did not and could not run the ball at all. It was just it was a it was almost like they didn't even try. I think outside of Mahomes, they were under 15 rushes on the game, which is wild in a 24-20 game, but they just could not get the run established. And I'll put a lot of pressure on guys. Orlando Brown has to play better. Andrew Wiley has to play better, both in run and pass situations. I think that's one of the keys moving forward, especially in a division with great pass rushers. They have to play better against the speed rush than what we saw, because it wasn't just Von Miller. It was Shaq Lawson. It was Greg Russo. I mean, it was any and everybody Buffalo put out there seemed to be having some success, at least frustrating Mahomes.
Yeah, anytime there was a third and long, it was okay. Where's Von Miller lined up? How much help are they going to give him? And you even saw like the highlight that everybody's going to be showing all week and talking about how saw Jerick McKinnon come into chip and he spins inside of it, and that's not a unique thing. That's what a lot of pass rushers do. But if you've got chip to the outside, I'm not going to pretend to offensive line, but it seemed to me that the whole thing is don't get beat to the inside if you got help to the outside. A lot easier said than done, and he's one of the best to ever do it. He's one of the best to ever do it because he can make plays like that, and you sign him to make plays like that. But yeah, on the flip side for the Chiefs, they've got to figure out a way to get a pass rush with outside of Chris Jones. And I was the biggest George Karlaftis guy. I think he's had a great rookie year so far, but didn't notice him really at all in that game last night. And then same thing with Frank Clark. Frank Clark made a couple of nice plays, knifing through, but consistently they've got to figure out a way to get a pressure on an opposing quarterback, and not just Josh Allen, but they had moments where on the flip side, Von Miller got near Patrick Mahomes, leapt over a guy, and then barely grabbed his foot in a really key play in that game. But there were times that the Chiefs could have brought down Josh Allen for a loss on a player, what would have been a very big defensive play. And Josh Allen just got out of it. And you give Josh Allen credit for that. But at the same time, you've got to have guys at those positions that finish plays. If you want to win the AFC, if you want to go win a Super Bowl, you've got to finish some big plays like that.
You almost need those cleanup guys as pass rushers. It's like, okay, you have Chris Jones who's disrupting the pocket. He's creating the pressure. You need Frank Clark and George Karlaftis and Colin Saunders to clean up. I think that's one thing we saw Buffalo do well. When Von Miller was able to pressure Mahomes, it was guys like Shaq Lawson cleaning things up. It was Matt Milano being all over the field, just trying to take away some of those scramble opportunities. So this defense is young. It's something that you and I, again, we've talked about it this season. It's a young defense. There's going to be some learning. It's a complicated defense to play in. But I do think it's okay on Monday morning to say, all right, we've got a handful of guys that was not their best outing. They have to step up for this team to play at their potential. And, your guy's Lord and Savior, Patrick Mahomes, 2 interceptions is not like him. And they were 2 interceptions, not on tipped balls. It wasn't a fluke play. It was 2 passes that defenders made good, but not exceptionally hard plays on. So I think, even Patrick has to be a little bit crisper than he was yesterday.
Yeah, as much as Patrick Mahomes made so many plays, but then had the couple of mistakes. Same thing with Harrison Butker. It was great to get him back. The 62-yard field goal when he lined up to hit that one, the way that he just kind of walked away from it was awesome. Yeah, like the moment the feeling that you got as soon as I saw him kick it and I saw him turn his back, I was like, oh, he hit that. Like I didn't even have to. I wasn't worried about it spinning one way or another or not getting there. Like he absolutely drilled that thing, but then misses the other one. A chip shot. As soon as he said it, I was like, no, don't say that. Why would you do that? But now anytime that Butker, distance isn't a thing. But it just seems like, Chiefs kicking and missing some key field goals happened. Obviously, it happened against the Colts game. Obviously, wasn't Butker, but it's just something you kind of got to worry about now. But Matt, before we talk a little bit about the future, we're going to take a quick word from our friends over at DraftKings. We're talking about that Harrison Butker just drilling that field goal, knowing that I think it was 12 seconds. It was like 9, 10, 12 seconds, something like that at the end of the first half. And can't imagine what Buffalo fans were thinking when the Chiefs get the ball at the end of the first half and they're able to go down and still get a field goal. But if you want to make every play feel as exciting as that field goal at the end of first half with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, well, they're unbeatable offers right now. You can get, as a new customer, you can make any $5 bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. And check this out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. And Matt, we're going to talk about this in a second, but the Chiefs are 3-point favorites on the road against your San Francisco 49ers with an over under of 48 points. And to make things even sweeter, DraftKings says that you can throw down on stepped up same game parlays once per game day all season long. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code KCSN to get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Just place a $5 bet on any football game. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook using code KCSN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, Matt, when you see that line, and we're looking forward now a little bit as the Chiefs get ready for that game against the San Francisco 49ers, what are the keys for the Chiefs? What do they need to fix before they go up against a team that I know you're familiar with?
Yeah, you better fix the run defense because you are facing a Kyle Shanahan offense, which he's pretty good at scheming up the run game, right? So that is the big thing. But the Niners are 3-3. They're tied for first in the NFC West. They are one of the most injured teams in the NFL right now. So I think that is one of the keys as we sit here on Monday is who's going to be out there. Charvarius Ward, a player the Chiefs are very familiar with, has been fantastic for San Francisco, but he got hurt Sunday. So I think that's so much of it. Will Nick Bosa be out there? Is there a chance Trent Williams returns at left tackle? Mike McGlinchey was out at right tackle. So right now the Niners are very banged up, and I think that showed, in a lopsided loss to the Atlanta Falcons. They're still able to get some things done offensively. Jimmy Garoppolo is Jimmy Garoppolo. You're going to get a couple touchdowns. You're going to get a couple interceptions. It's going to be inconsistent, but at times it can also, it can be good enough to beat teams, especially when they get Deebo Samuel going. Brandon Ayuk has been very good for them this year, I think somewhat unexpectedly. They did not run the ball well against Atlanta. They fell behind early and really had to try to throw to win. So I think that's something to watch. This is a team that, much like what the Raiders did, much like what Buffalo did in the first quarter, they're going to want to run to win, control tempo, control the clock, and try to keep the ball out of Patrick's hands. So I think the injury report is going to be a big one to watch for San Francisco. I know Kansas City's very healthy right now, but you could be facing a skeleton crew, or you could be facing, a team a lot of people believe is a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah. Either way, hopefully in the Chiefs injury report regard, hopefully, Willie Gay will be back. His obviously being a suspension, but would like to see Trent McDuffie get back in. We haven't seen much of him, and we know he was going to be a big part of this. The faster he can get back and get out on the field, going up against Jimmy G and obviously, Deebo Samuel, all the guys that you were just mentioning, but need to get him some experience and get him ready for the rest of the year so he doesn't feel like a rookie by the time we get to the end of the year and we go up against Buffalo and hopefully get into the playoffs, barring everybody staying healthy, and not to be too presumptuous about that. But for the Chiefs, we've been talking about it this whole time to wrap this up, but got to be better at the tackles. They got to be better about protecting Patrick Mahomes in some of those big situations. They can't deliver the ball down the field. Even we talk about Tyreek and all that. They can't deliver the ball down the field if they don't have time for those routes to develop. And then defensively, got to figure out a way to get a pressure, with four guys outside of Chris Jones. Steve Spagnuolo is going to be aggressive. It's what he does. We saw it in the red zone, going cover zero, just sending the house, and it's successful, but you can't live by that consistently and not get burned just a little bit. And we saw some guys get left out on islands when it happened, and those guys got beat. But hopefully they learned from that. But Matt, man, we appreciate your time. What are you working on? Where can people find your work right now?
Yeah, ESPN.com. We're doing a lot of draft notebooks every Monday and every Friday. So you can get kind of a weekend recap on Monday, but then on Friday, get, players we're watching, rumors we're hearing. The article that came out this past Friday, I, emptied my notebook about things I'm hearing about this kind of fascinating quarterback race happening in college football right now. So really gearing up for what's going to be a fantastic draft class. I know Chiefs fans are nowhere near ready to talk about the NFL draft, but it's going to be a good class. It's going to be a fun year. So we're definitely ahead of the curve on figuring out who the players are this year.
They might not be ready, but the more you want to pump quarterbacks and raise their stock and do all those things, we take as many first round quarterbacks as want to be taken in the draft. That's nothing but good news for Chiefs fans, and honestly, for Bills fans, if we're being honest here, talking about the Chiefs and Bills. But Matt, man, we appreciate your time. We'll see you next time. And everybody, thank you for tuning into this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast. We appreciate your support. Make sure to like, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time. We got plenty more content coming up this week, recapping and analyzing a little bit of what we saw between the Chiefs and Bills, and obviously looking forward to that game on Sunday against the 49ers. Chiefs get back into the win column, hopefully, but we appreciate all your support. Hopefully everybody's a great day. We'll see you later.